until we get into it here. But a few updates for us. For those who haven't been on before, we do these webinars every Wednesday and Thursday at 1 o'clock. Like, for example, next Wednesday, we're doing Walmart updates. There's not too many of those, but the ones that there are some kind of shocking ones. But nonetheless, we'll talk about that on Wednesday. I sent out some emails about it as well. But we do these webinars every Wednesday and Thursday at 1. We record all of them. So if you're getting our invites for these webinars and you want to attend one, but you're not available at that time, just if you register, you will get the recording. So even if you can't make it, just register, you'll get the recording. If you're not getting all of our invites, just let us know and we'll make sure we're sending it to the right email address. But if you're on today, obviously you must have gotten it, I would assume. And then lastly, I'll say, as we go through, if you have some questions, just send them into the webinar, and I'm going to answer them at the end for us when we wrap up. So again, it's Ed Crow and Associates. I think most of you are familiar with us. We usually do these topics on Medicare issues. Sometimes we throw in other things like, various long-term care things or annuities or life insurance, but usually focus on Medicare. So today we're going to talk about one that I know very well, because I've been doing it for years, and that's using GoodRx with Medicare. This is a strategy I know a lot of other agents use for a couple of different reasons, but we're going to go through it today. And like I said, I'll answer any questions at the end. So we'll talk about using GoodRx with a PDP plan or an MAPD for generic drug coverage. People probably wonder why I didn't say name brand. It doesn't work as well with name brands, but on generics it certainly does. How GoodRx can help you save a sale, or at least save you a lot of trouble or headaches with an existing client. Talk about some pharmacy issues you can have with this strategy, although you shouldn't, but you do once in a while, and just how to deal with that and address it. And then we'll just briefly, if you haven't been on, go on the GoodRx site for a couple minutes and just show you how to run through it. It's super simple and easy. But I'll just go on there quick and just show you. I mean, if you haven't used it before, it's about as easy as it gets. So the issue I think that a lot of us have is with PDPs and MAPD plans, so with generic drug coverage. So most of your generics on a PDP or MAPD, if they're a cheap generic, they're going to be in tier 1 or 2, and a lot of times they're a zero copay. But as you've noticed, sometimes generic drugs, especially like the creams for like eczema, painkillers especially, sometimes the higher dosage of generic diabetes medications, they'll be put in tier 3 to 5 at times. And when that happens, the company's going to default, when it goes in tier 3 to 5, they're going to default either to the copay, but in tier 3 to 5 that can be expensive, or they'll go by the negotiated price, whichever is less. They can't upcharge. So if the negotiated price that they've negotiated with that pharmacy for that drug is lower than the copay, then the client's going to pay the lower amount, the negotiated rate, not the copay. So when the generic drug's put in that tier, that's really what it comes down to. How well has that insurance company negotiated that price? And sometimes if you're trying to make a sale, maybe all the doctors line up on Aetna, for example, and that's the best fit, but there's one generic drug that they just cover horribly, terribly, and it's super expensive, and it can blow up your sale, and then you got to look for other plans and things like that. GoodRx can save you from doing that a lot of times. But anyway, when it's a generic drug that goes into tier 3 or 5, they're going to pay the negotiated price. So if the company hasn't negotiated a good price, it's going to be expensive. And also keep in mind, it's going to be applicable to the deductible. So in those scenarios, it's a generic. That plan's got a $450 deductible. They're going to have to meet that first. So they're going to be paying that negotiated price until the deductible is met. And, it's just going to drive their cost up. So it can lead to a lot higher cost for some generic drugs, and it can certainly blow up your drug run on Connecture or Sunfire. So when, if you're using Connecture or Sunfire, obviously you can save drug lists on there. It saves your client information, saves the drug list, and you can run those drugs. If you haven't done it, it's easy. You just add the drugs, just like on the Medicare site, but, this saves all your info for you. So you can run the drugs on there for people, and it will show you every plan and the cost for every plan by drug. And it can make it look really expensive if you got one or two generics that are coming out poorly on that drug run, and GoodRx can fix that too. So that's what we've used it for in the past. So we'll give you some examples here. So you're running a PDP or an MAPD for somebody, you kind of figure out the plan with the doctors or the PDP that comes out best, but there's one drug that's just brutal. And that happens a lot with, now, I'm not going to let you laugh at me by listening to me try to pronounce the names of most of these drugs because I can't, but I know what they're for. So the first couple are creams. Those are prescribed for a couple of things, but eczema is a big one. And if you look, on the average MAPD or PDP, that drug, the negotiated rate of that is $70.68, and it's being thrown in Tier 4 with most companies. So the client's going to pay $70.68 a month for that drug. The same cream on GoodRx is $29. Same thing with the next one. That was a Tier 4 with most companies at a $100 copay. So the negotiated price, that means the negotiated price is even higher than that. So it's defaulting to the copay on that drug. GoodRx for that same drug is $11. Hydrocodone, a painkiller, and this is, you can say this about, there's a bunch of painkillers like oxycodone, a whole bunch have this happen. Tier 3 with most companies at $47. On GoodRx, it's $12. So it's just a huge savings. And there's a number of commonly taken generic, I should have put generic in there, commonly taken generic medications that are going to have the same result, where it's just going to come out way better on GoodRx. So when you run these things on Connector or Sunfire, it's going to break it down for you, show you every kind of plan, PDP or MAPD, and it's going to show you, okay, per month, this drug is going to cost this much with this plan. And you can quick flip over to GoodRx when you're talking to that client and say, yeah, I know it's $47 on this plan, but don't worry about it. You can fill that through GoodRx for $12. So it definitely can save you a sale in a lot of cases. So if you go to GoodRx.com, all you really have to do is, and I'll do a demonstration of this in a minute, but you can go to GoodRx.com, you just put in the location and the drug name, and boom, it will run it, and it will show you where you can get that drug the cheapest at any local pharmacy. So it makes it really easy. It's consumer facing the site, so they can go on there and do the same thing. And I use this with probably a quarter of my existing clients. The bigger reason I use it is for existing clients. So we've all probably had this happen where you run their drugs through an MAPD or PDP, everything looks great, and then they call you and say, well, I forgot to mention one drug, and it just so happens that's going to be a super expensive generic. Or maybe during the year they started taking a new med you didn't know about, and it's coming out really expensive. Well, in most cases, unless they have drug help or there's some other funky election, you can't switch them, and you just got to listen to them complain and say to them, we can't move you until AEP. And that's just what the cost is going to be on the plan. You didn't tell me about the drug, or this is a drug we didn't know about. There's really just not anything we can do about it right now. So as opposed to saying that, I'll check GoodRx for them, and I'll tell them about it. And oftentimes that drug will be substantially cheaper. They'll think you're really smart, and they'll be really happy because you've come up with a solution for them. So I use this probably more, and I think a lot of brokers use this more to keep existing clients happy when something like that happens. They use probably more often for that than they do even on new sales, but it certainly comes in handy on new sales as well. So with GoodRx, and like I said, I'll go on the site, all you would really do is you'd plug in the medication's name on the GoodRx site. It's just when you go on the home page, it's got a space just to plug the drug right in. The drug will come up. It'll show the cost of that drug at any given pharmacy. You can adjust the dosage to the proper dosage, and you can adjust the amount. So let's say they're taking 30 pills a month. A lot of times on GoodRx, the price will be really good for 30, but it'll be really good. The discount will be huge for like a 90-day fill. So make sure you check that when you do this. And then on the site, it'll simply have, for filling that drug at any given pharmacy, it'll have a free coupon right there that you can email to them, or they can print, or you could print. There's a coupon right there that can be used at that pharmacy. GoodRx also has an app that you can put on a cell phone, and usually clients wind up doing that if their smartphone smart, I guess for lack of a better way to put it. They can put that app on their smartphone, and then they just don't even need the coupon. They just got the app, and they just use that when they fill the drug. GoodRx also, they want you to, obviously they're not paying us, so they love having all this free promotion. You can order, as an agent, you can order discount cards. So you can have a pile of them on your desk. A lot of people use them for sure at Walmart's. They put them on their table at Walmart, just as another thing to try to lure people over to the table. And you can have these cards you can give out. They can also call and order their own card, but you can hand them out and have them handy, so that way you can say, hey, look, when you go to the pharmacy, run it on GoodRx, and when you go to the pharmacy, just use this card. You don't even need to print the coupon. So a couple things. They can use their drug plan. Let's say they've got 6 drugs. And I notice I have some questions, and please feel free to send them into the webinar. I will answer them at the end. Let's say they take 6 medications on their drug plan. They're on an MAPD, 6 meds. One of them is a generic that's super expensive on their plan. All they have to do is when they go to their pharmacy, they fill the 5 drugs through their plan, and they say to the pharmacist, I want to fill this one drug through GoodRx. There's no rules with that. They don't have to fill all the drugs through GoodRx or their plan. They can mix and match. The other fringe benefit here is that drug they're filling through GoodRx, if you think about it, it won't count towards the donut hole for them. So that expensive generic, or maybe they got 2 of them, it's cheaper, they're filling them through GoodRx and not their plan, then that amount doesn't count on the drug towards the drug gap for them, so it'll keep them out of the donut hole longer as well. There are times where there's issues with the pharmacy using the insurance instead of GoodRx. I tend to run into this at CVS. And what will happen is your client will go to CVS and they'll say, I want to fill these 4 drugs with my plan, and I want to fill these 2 with GoodRx. And CVS, they've gotten a little better, but they were doing it for a while, where they'll say, no, you got to fill everything through your insurance. That is not legal. They can't do that. I don't even think they're doing it on purpose. It's probably just the person at the pharmacy not knowing any better, but they're absolutely not allowed to do that. So usually the person can say, no, actually, I'm allowed to fill some drugs through my plan and some through GoodRx, process it for me. If they won't, worst case scenario is your client just calls their doctor and says, hey, send this drug to whatever other pharmacy had those drugs cheap on GoodRx. Send all my drugs, keep them at my normal pharmacy, and send these 2 to Walgreens. And then they just have to fill those 2 with GoodRx through Walgreens. That shouldn't happen. It's not legally allowed for it to happen, but it does sometimes. Not often, but sometimes. I just wanted to mention in case it does, so you know how to talk them through that if that situation occurs. So a few other things. This strategy will not work with expensive name brand meds. Examples: Eliquis, Xarelto. I was going to say Pradaxa, but nobody takes Pradaxa really anymore. It's all Eliquis and Xarelto. Those are, for those not familiar, those are blood thinners. There is no generic for them. You don't need lab work when you take those drugs. That's why people take them, because you don't have to go like with warfarin or Coumadin, which are dirt cheap. But warfarin and Coumadin, you usually need monthly lab work. You don't with Eliquis or Xarelto. But drugs like that will not negotiate discounts. So even GoodRx, with their massive buying power, can't get the price of Eliquis or Xarelto down. Eliquis and Xarelto is going to say, we usually charge $515 a month for this drug. We'll get it down to $502. So GoodRx won't help with those. Same thing with Victoza and Januvia. Those are drugs newer drugs that diabetics take. It won't work on those. They don't negotiate prices. And GoodRx is really revealing, because it'll show every pharmacy's price. And on a lot of drugs, the price range will be crazy different between what one pharmacy's negotiated versus another, but not with Eliquis, Xarelto, Victoza, and Januvia and others like it. The prices will almost be identical at every single pharmacy because they just really don't negotiate. So GoodRx won't work for those. Of course, by doing this, I know myself and a lot of agents that work with us, I know a lot of agents that use this strategy because it is helpful and it saves you headaches. But we're giving GoodRx a lot of free business. They get paid for every fill. They take a dispensing fee. a filling fee and a margin and admin fee. So they're making a lot on this, and we're just pushing them free business. They don't pay agents. There's no type of compensation at all, and they have no plans to ever have compensation for agents. They don't need us, quite honestly. They're thriving to a massive extent without us, so they're just going to keep going as they do. We're working currently, it's too early for me to announce it, but we're working currently on using a vendor that's of the same size, does the same thing, free discount. They don't charge anything for the discount. Actually, their discounts are better. If you look at the top 50 meds, generic meds that seniors take, the company we're working with, they win on the discount price against GoodRx on all 50. So it's actually a better program. And if we can make this work out and I can put a deal in place, they'll pay us for every fill that is done. So just like GoodRx, client gets a card or you send them an email with the link, they put that on file at the pharmacy, it stays on file. So they fill one time. Every time they fill, that information is going to be in the pharmacist's system. They don't have to show them the card every time. They don't have to show them the coupon every time. It's just in there. And every time they fill, we'll get paid as agents. I'm in the works on this. There's some things to figure out. There's some compliance things to make sure we're okay with. So I'm not guessing on this. I'm going to make sure that we're good with everything. There'll be a street level. If it all goes through, there'll be a level for hierarchies for agencies, GAM, GAS, GA. So I hope to have approval on this in the next few weeks. Maybe that's a little optimistic. But I certainly will let you know, and we'll roll it out on a future webinar. I would be excited if we could get it in place, and because that would be a great thing for us to be able to do, to use a strategy and also get compensated for it would be really nice. I don't think anybody would argue with that. But more on that as soon as I have more on it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you a quick example of the GoodRx site, and then I'll go back to the webinar and answer any questions. This is going to take like 1 minute. So you go to GoodRx.com. It's this easy. You type in the drug. Let's put in, we'll do oxycodone with acetaminophen. You just type in the drug. You can set the location for this, by the way, because it's location specific. I just typed it in, but you certainly can set the location for it. And see right here, it says set your location, so you can pick an area. But what this does is I put in oxycodone, I put in 60 tablets. I can adjust that, obviously, but I'll go 60 for now. And there you go. It shows you the pharmacy and the GoodRx price, and you can see there's a huge range. I mean, on this specific drug, CVS with GoodRx has negotiated a tremendous discount versus not as good at Walgreens, ShopRite, Rite Aid, and you can click right here to get the free coupon. There it is. You can email it to the client, or they can just get it themselves. You can text it to them, or they can just print it. So it's super easy. And that's really all you have to do. And it'll show you the drug when you put it in. To show you the Eliquis example really quick, just so you can see. As I said, one quick thing though before. What's cool about this is it shows you what the actual retail cost of these drugs are for that pharmacy, like $141. They've negotiated it down to $10. But if we want to use a drug that doesn't negotiate discounts, let's take a look at Eliquis. There you go. As you can see, it's actually, there's more of a variation than there used to be, but you'll find this with those high-end demand name brands that are newer on the market, it just won't work. Now, some of the older brand names that are expensive, it will. There's I forget the medication that you take for tick bites. I forget what it's called right now. Anyway, it's an old drug. But it's an antibiotic used for tick bites. Like that, if you just buy it, is very expensive, and it's expensive through the drug plans, super cheap on GoodRx. So there's tons of drugs like that. But that is how GoodRx works, just to give you a quick idea. All right, let me go back here to the presentation. Okay, so that's it. We're finished. I'm going to see if we have any questions. And again, join us for future webinars if you'd like, every Wednesday and Thursday at 1. This one's more in line with the time we usually do. I'm right at 20 minutes. So let's see if we have any questions. Oh, we do. Okay, so we have some questions. It's always good. Okay, so if it does not go through the medication plan, then it does not count towards the total out-of-pocket, which moves you through the Part D phases leading up to catastrophic, correct? Well, that's one way to look at it, yeah. If you're not putting the drug through the drug plan, you're going to get to the catastrophic slower, but that's the bad side. On the good side, though, you might not hit the donut hole at all. So if you got a couple drugs that you're putting through GoodRx, that's not counting towards the donut hole. So it might keep your client from getting into the donut hole in the first place. But yes, valid point. Does GoodRx work for non-Medicare people? Yes, absolutely. Works the exact same way. The discount cards is saying that if they are eligible for reimbursement or coverage of prescription drugs such as Medicare, you cannot use this card. No, they can. I know it says that, but it's used all the time, and it can be used. Not sure why they have that disclaimer on there. I guess that gives the pharmacy that out, but technically the pharmacy isn't allowed to do that. But I've been using the strategies for years, and rarely do I get an issue with the pharmacy, but when you do, you can just have them fill it somewhere else. Does this typically work at Walmart? Yeah, it does, but not, as you could see on the example, it just depends on the drug. Sometimes Walmart will have the best price, sometimes they won't. Do you get a new coupon every time? The coupons usually are the same. They will update from time to time, but if somebody's worried about, they really don't have to worry about the coupon expiring, because once they put it in the system at the pharmacy, it tends to stay there. However, if they get the card, which is free, and you can get for free to give them, or if they put the app on their phone, then they don't have to worry about that anymore. See if we have any other questions. Is there a competitor to GoodRx? There is. I mean, there's certainly competitors to them, like Single Care, for example. I think GoodRx usually is about the same discount as Single Care. Single Care doesn't pay agents either. There's a third company that's the one I'm talking to, and if I can work it out with them, their discounts are actually better right across the board. And like I said, they have a model where they would pay us. Am I going to share this presentation? Yes. Everybody who registered, I will give you a copy. We'll email you a copy of the presentation. So as long as you registered, which if you're on this you did, you will get a copy. Somebody said, thanks, great info. Hey, I give out good info, I don't know, at least half the time. So I'm glad this was the right side of the 50%. Do we have any other questions? I'll wait for another second or so to see if we got anything else. Okay, it doesn't look like we have anything else. I think we're done. So appreciate you joining me today. Again, you'll get the recording. If you have any questions, just call us at the office, 203-796-5403. I'll be happy to answer any questions for you, and I hope everybody has a great day, and I'll do one last question check. Nope, that's it. We're done for questions, so everybody have a great day, and hope to see you on a future webinar. Thank you.